Aloha kakahiaka. Welcome to our joint committee hearing between the Committees on Water and Land and the Committee on Energy and Environmental Protection. It's February 6, 2024, 9:05 a.m. agenda, conference room 325. Before we get into testimony, just wanted to announce that we also have a 9:45 agenda for EEP WAL, and we're going to do both agendas and then decision making for both agendas after. Okay, testimony. We'll start with HB 1839 relating to the environment. First is Department of Health.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, and committee members. Mary Ann Nasir from the Department of Health. The department stands on its written testimony and support, and we're here if you have any questions.
Thank you. Lahaina Strong on Zoom. Okay, not present. Keone Shizuma on Zoom. Okay, not present. That's all we have signed up to testify. Is there anyone else wishing to testify? Okay, seeing none. Members, any questions? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to our next item, HB 1840 relating to the environment. And just gotta get to that page. Department of Land and Natural Resources.
Good morning, chairs, vice chairs, members of the committees. Ryan Kanakole, First Deputy, Department of Land and Natural Resources. The department stands on its written testimony and support, provided that the passage of this bill does not replace or adversely impact the priorities that we set out in the executive budget. We're here for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Lahaina Strong on Zoom. Okay. Clayton Kubo on Zoom. Okay. That's all we have signed up to testify. Is there anyone else wishing to testify? Okay, seeing none. Members, questions? Okay, moving on to HB 2095 relating to emergency management, Department of Health. Okay, Department of Health?
Aloha chairs, vice chairs, Kathleen Ho on behalf of the Department of Health, Deputy Director for Environmental Health. We stand on our written testimony. Thank you.
Thank you. Build Strong America.
Morning, chairs, vice chairs. Matt Sujimura on behalf of Build Strong America. We'll stand on our written testimony and strong support. Happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all signed up to testify. Is there anyone else wishing to testify?
Aloha and good morning, Chair Ichiyama and Chair Lowen. Board of Water Supply, we haven't submitted a written testimony. Actually, we support this bill. We just ask that it requires the Department of Health to actually coordinate with the local water utility or water purveyor on this effort. So we welcome the support. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to testify? Okay, seeing none. Members, questions?
For Department of Health, please.
Aloha chairs, Vice Chair Kathleen Ho on behalf of the Department of Health. We stand in.
Question.
I have a question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry. I was having a conversation with my staff.
We're still on House Bill 2095.
Okay.
Relating to emergency management. And I just want to clarify the department's testimony that the department believes this bill is redundant because the department already has the ability to exercise the powers that are laid out in this bill.
That's correct. And so, I'm sorry, I'm flat-footed. I wasn't prepared to testify on this bill. But as I recall on this bill, it requires us to do several things, or suggesting that we do and put in statute several things, which we are already doing, like long-term monitoring, a timeline in which things should be done, things like that. We already have that authority to do in our enforcement authorities. And so we really do think that this bill is redundant.
And so this bill doesn't give you anything new or
Correct.
additional than the powers you already have?
Correct.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
Okay.
Thank you. Any more questions? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to H Bill 2407 relating to wildfire risk mitigation. First is Hawaii State Energy Office.
Morning, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. John Chin from the State Energy Office. We stand our written testimony and support.
Thank you. Attorney General on Zoom? Oh, in person?
Good morning. Deputy Attorney General Randall Nishiyama for the Department of the Attorney General. Given the specialized nature of security financing, we submitted the bill to Craig Scully, the state's public finance counsel, and he has provided comments regarding this bill. We would be happy to answer any questions that the committees may have regarding this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. DCCA Division of Consumer Advocacy.
Morning, chairs, vice chairs, members of the committee. My name is Michael Angelo. I am the executive director of the Department of Commerce and Consumer Affairs Division of Consumer Advocacy. We support this administration bill, and I would like to note, there's a lot of bills coming out, and ratepayers are being asked to pay for a lot of different things. I think this bill offers some protections that we are in favor of, and I provide this context because there's a lot of different versions of this coming out. There's language in this bill that includes, that does not establish an assumption of prudence, simply because an electric utility has filed an approved wildfire risk protection plan. We strongly support consideration for equity that's contemplated in this bill by requiring that the surcharge for the wildfire protection fee be non-bypassable. And we also appreciate that the bill requires the impacts of the financing. It has statutory language requiring the impacts of the financing for wildfire protection costs be minimized. Thank you, and I'm available for questions. And we support this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Office of the Governor.
Blake Oshiro, Senior Advisor for the Governor. We stand on our written testimony and strong support, and I'll be available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Public Utilities Commission.
Good morning, chairs, vice chairs, members of the committee. My name is Grace Ralph, testifying on behalf of the Public Utilities Commission in support. We'll stand on our written testimony, but would be happy to answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
Thank you. Hawaiian Electric.
Good morning, chairs, vice chairs, committee members. My name is Jim Alberts on behalf of Hawaiian Electric. So today we are testifying in support of HB 2407, but with amendments. So the amendments that we're asking for address the wildfire mitigation plan specifically today, but we're asking for consideration of the opportunity to suggest revisions for the securitization portion of this bill later on, while working with the governor's team, to make sure that that securitization effort can be successful. Now, I wanted to speak briefly about the amendments. So there's three sets of the amendments. The first is requesting to include language that provides a method for prompt approval and recovery of the expenses. While we think it's good to approve the securitization, we think that the ability to approve that quickly and be able to get prompt recovery for those expenses is important. The second amendment was to strike the penalties portion of the bill because we believe that the PUC already has the authority to regulate the utility as we file these plans, that the PUC with HRS 26928 has the authority to regulate and impose penalties on the process. And the third part of the amendments is to really to protect the jurisdiction of the PUC by limiting the ability to sue as a result of filing a plan. So when we file a plan and it's approved by the PUC, that's the limitation. So for clarity, this amendment is not asking for blanket immunity. It's not taking away anybody's rights. It's simply saying if we submit a plan and if it's approved, that we should not be sued for the filing of that plan and what's in the plan. And a practical example in recent history that I can share with you is in California with PG&E. Customers sued PG&E for a public safety power shutoff event. And because that event was regulated by the PUC, the California Supreme Court rejected that claim. So in a similar way, that's really what we're asking for here, is to make sure we refine and say the plan is regulated and approved by the PUC and they have the authority to do that. We don't want to create more liability by creating a plan. So if the plan is approved, the plan is there. If we do something that's negligent, or if any party does something that's negligent, they still can be sued. All this plan does is, all this amendment does is to limit that. So we stand strongly in support and ask for your consideration of these amendments, and I'll be here for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. That's all we have signed up to testify. Is there anyone else wishing to testify?
Aloha, chairs, vice chairs, and committee members. I believe we submitted testimony. Henry Curtis with Life of the Land. I want to first talk about de-energization, also known in California as public safety power shutoff. As Jim mentioned, the PUC in California has spent 10 years reviewing this and issued many decisions. The Hawaii PUC has issued no decisions on this. California points out that power shutoffs can have devastating impact on communities. I'm sure you all heard people from your districts talking about rolling blackouts and the problems that caused. That takes consideration, informed discussion with stakeholders at the PUC. So we have no problem with a plan being finalized and not appealable, as Hiko mentioned, but the plan better be sophisticatedly put together with stakeholder input. This bill says that you can put it in a non-docket. A non-docket means the PUC does not allow interveners into the proceeding, that the public has no formal process to participate. That term, non-docket, has to be removed from this bill. The second thing is that while you may say that annual updates should be done very timely, the first plan put into place had better be correct, and that might take more time. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else wishing to testify? Okay, members, questions?
All right, EEP members' questions? I guess I'll start with the PUC. I guess I just had some questions to clarify the testimony. At the end of your narrative testimony, there's sort of like the summary list of bullet points. Are all these addressed in the amendments? Or some of them suggestions for things I wasn't sure that I had seen whether there was language about whether the consulting costs would be recoverable, for example.
I believe we did address all of the bullet points in our testimony. For that one in particular, I think that would be considered under the amendment we proposed under the definition of wildfire protection costs.
Okay, wildfire protection.
Yep.
It's not really explicit, though. It just, is that covered under, because it says financing costs, what you added, federal state taxes associated with recovery, financing costs, and catastrophic wildfire costs or expenses. authorized in the order?
I think that the first part there, that catastrophic wildfire costs or expenses authorized by the commission, that would be, I think, the blanket where we could consider recovery of those costs.
Okay. And then I had some questions about what sounds kind of like an automatic approval of any costs that were in up to 15% greater than what was previously determined to be reasonable through the process of doing the wildfire mitigation plan. So do you want to say more about that? I'm just not sure how that's calculated, and I guess if that's the case, then what's the incentive to still keep costs to what was agreed to?
Yeah, that's a great question. So my thinking on that provision in here is that we know that these wildfire protection plans are going to come with some variance in terms of cost. So I think this includes that would improve some administrative efficiency for having to sort of come back to the drawing board anytime there's, a slight overrun or that kind of thing. That definitely does not remove our ability to closely scrutinize costs and also to, include any performance incentives or shared savings mechanisms that we could use to incentivize cost efficiency, which I think we would definitely want to do.
Can I ask the consumer advocate on that amendment, what you think of that? I'm sorry, I might have more questions for the PUC. Come up to the mic, though. Sorry, if you can both kind of stay there.
I think we understand the intent with the administrative efficiency. I do have concerns of having a zone of reasonableness. If it's 15% over, and that becomes the new norm, then it's 15% on top of that, and it's 15% on top of that, and the cost can escalate. I'd want to know, I think that should be carefully scrutinized from a legal perspective, the implications of that.
So alternatively, there would just have to be a longer process to determine.
The reasonableness
They
of
could still file a regular proceeding?
Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you. And then I saw in the PUC's testimony, you did add just exercising its duties under this section. We did add a bullet of whether costs are consistent with the public interest, so that would have been on my list too. So I was glad to see it in there. But do you think that we should provide more detail surrounding that? And
I think we absolutely could. One of the things that we included in kind of those summary bullet points was that the, securitization term and ratepayer benefits should be analyzed, including evaluating the impacts on customers, which will be responsible for such charges, and including an appropriate review process should be in place to achieve the lowest cost issuance. So I think we absolutely agree with you, and yeah, I would agree.
okay, I guess what would be top of the list? I mean, because now we're looking at moving it out today and making amendments, so it'd be good to think about those things. Like, whether the utility has made all reasonable effort to seek the lowest possible financing costs, or, what other things might we add to provide more assurance?
I think that's one of them. I would want to get back to you on specific language. I think, the other comparable bills that are looking at securitization had some language in there about comparison to traditional utility financing, which is another option. I'm not sure that's necessarily the best option, just given the nature of securitization, but we'd be happy to, provide you some specific language and get back to you as quickly as we can.
Then I guess same question for consumer advocate. Just this bullet that says determining whether costs are consistent with the public interest. Would it be better to provide a more robust discussion of what falls under that very broad statement?
That is a broad statement. I think some more prescriptive protections would be beneficial. I would also point to our amendments where this process would be both receiving public input and necessitating that this went through a docketed proceeding, so there was any of these wildfire plans and these costs went through a docketed proceeding so that there could be a review of those costs and there could be public participation and a defined evidentiary standard.
Your testimony, I think, addressed that question of docketed versus non-docketed and makes it so it shall be docketed.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks.
Going back and forth. And then I think the rest of the PUC's testimony is like a little bit outside of my area of expertise. I guess it's wildfire protection property. I mean, is that referring to the bond?
Yes, it's the property right that comes with the capital invested with the bonds. Hopefully I said that right.
And is this just standard kind of language, like utility may sell or assign portions of its interest in the wildfire protection property to other, is it like what?
That's my understanding. I think, our point here is that the intent of securitization is to enable low-cost financing for the utility. And I think the, transferability and assignment of that property would be another mechanism to ensure they are allowed to do so.
Okay. Okay, thank you. I have some more questions for a consumer advocate, but I think for now, that's good.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Before I keep going on, anyone want to jump in? Okay. Do you think that also regarding the financing order, there should be more detail in statute about what should be required to be addressed in the financing order when that?
It's hard to, I mean,
issued?
yes, a more prescriptive, protective, the more protections that we can have in statute with respect to protecting ratepayers and who are going to be asked to bear these costs, yes, I think that would be beneficial. And having the docketed proceeding to be able to address that in a public forum would be helpful as well, so those costs can, so that we can ensure that we're following what is in the what is put forth by the ledge.
Okay, I think maybe that's something we can work together on going forward with Chair Ichiyama as well.
Okay.
Just, I think there could be more specificity about the public interest. So I have, I guess, another question, because I know there's been ongoing talks working, leading up to getting this bill together and being introduced. So question for you and maybe for the governor's office. I mean, this is a pretty big give, right, to the electric utility.
Yes.
They're in a difficult financial situation, and we want to, this is something that's been done in other states. It's not, completely out of the box, but it's still a pretty big give that will be funded by ratepayers.
Yes.
It's going to raise people's electric bills. So first, is there any ballpark concept of how big would this bond be and what would be the impact to ratepayers? I mean, say that it's $500 million. What would how would that boil down to people's electric bills? Has there been any attempt to ballpark this?
We have not quantified potential impact on rates. It could be, very large, but it depends on, the number of customers, roughly speaking, and whatever that increase to the company's revenue requirement would be spread out among customers. I mean, as a very rough back-of-the-envelope calculation.
But no numbers.
But not a specific number. It's hard to put a number on it without a more, I mean, we could look at a range. We could look at maybe.
Would it be more than $1 a month?
I don't know. I can't answer that question right now, but we can look into it.
Okay. I think that's something that everyone wants to know, right? What will the impact be before we write a blank check?
Absolutely.
And I know the PUC, I know that there's other processes besides this, but I think that's really important. And then in the midst of all these conversations as well, Hawaiian Electric is a company, they're a business. And
right.
When businesses are in financial hard times, they look at downsizing or restructuring or selling off assets. I mean, not most businesses don't have the option to come to the legislature and ask for this process where they can access a bunch of capital. So do you feel like those steps have been taken first? And is it fair to ask ratepayers to shoulder this burden if the company hasn't looked at what they can do before taking this step?
I think that is something that could be looked into in greater detail, and that's something that impacts a broad swath of the state, and that a lot of stakeholders should be involved in that discussion.
But these conversations haven't, I mean, this measure is being supported, maybe Blake wants to weigh in, but this measure is being supported by, the administration, the governor's office, et cetera. I would hope there would be some pressure on the utility to also see what they can do internally to save costs. And
We certainly would support a robust plan that looks at a multitude of options before going to ratepayers.
okay, have those conversations happened?
Not with our office at this point.
Okay, have those conversations happened in the governor's office?
Blake O'Shea, Senior Advisor for the Governor. So there have been some initial discussions. We're still talking it over with HECO. I would not say we're at the point where there's any clear commitment yet. We put in this administration bill because we understood that there were three things that the utility needed. We felt that this gave two parts of what they needed, but with some guidelines. And we wanted to make sure that this wasn't creating some sort of shield or something else that we found a bit concerning in some of the other proposals or drafts that we've seen. I think we do recognize your concern about the impact on ratepayers, and the governor is very, very sensitive to that. At one point, while we were drafting this, we did think about whether there should be some sort of consideration as to a cap, perhaps, working backwards from exactly what you said, right? Like, what is a tolerable amount that we think a ratepayer can absorb on their monthly bill? Multiply that out by the number of ratepayers, multiply that out by then the bond that you might be able to securitize on that, and then put it in and see what happens, right? But we never quite got to that specific point. But at this stage, given the enormity of the issues that are before us, as well as the compressed timetable that you folks are facing with the legislative calendar, I think we'd be open to maybe some sort of provision like that, even with the understanding that maybe that amount might need to be negotiated further down the line or something else. But I will fully acknowledge a lot of these things are moving parts, very difficult. They're all interconnected, right, between the insurance bill that you guys heard on Friday, I think it was, and then you have these two parts of the plan and securitization. So it's just,
I guess,
it all needs to come together at some point, but we're not there yet.
yeah, I guess just the question more, I mean, looking at Hawaiian Electric, there's, each electric utility company, they have the umbrella of HEI. They have a lot of very high-paid positions under that umbrella, and they have a lot of subsidiary holdings. So have they made, I would think one of the first questions we'd want to ask is, have you done your due diligence as a privately held company to, cut costs and tighten the belt before coming to ratepayers and the legislature and asking them to shoulder all of that burden? So it sounds like none of that has really happened or been discussed.
So it has been discussed. I will say that we've made it clear to them that at this point, due to the legislative calendar, we're moving some things forward. But if the comprehensive overall package does not come together, including some of those things that you're talking about with is what exactly is sort of HECO's skin in the game in all of this is a bottom line question, which we still don't have an exact answer to. If we don't get that clarity, then at some point we may say, sorry, we may not be standing behind these bills anymore. But for now, because of the calendar, because of how we need to move things, if we're going to meet the 3 readings and all that other stuff, we are where we're at.
Okay, all right, thanks. Anyone have questions they want to jump in? Okay, then Hawaiian Electric. I guess, and same question for you, or multiple questions, but we'll start with the one we were just talking about. I mean, what has been Hawaiian Electric's discussions internally about, how you can lower your costs being in a difficult financial situation, like businesses do when this kind of thing happens?
Yeah, so we are looking at all of that internally, and it's probably worth mentioning a few things about the way we're regulated too. And I know you know these things, but in our performance-based regulation model, we have a multi-year rate period. So we got to manage our costs in that multi-year rate period with an escalator each year of the GDPPI, which is around 2.5% each year. Now, within that, we look at all of our costs and we study those and we make sure we're delivering the best value we can for customers. So I don't know, I can't give you a specific commitment, but I can assure you we're looking at that.
Has there been any downsizing? Has there been any looking at people's salaries? Has there been any serious conversation or action taken to look at selling assets? Or is this
yes, to all the above. Yeah,
but
yes.
has any of it actually been implemented?
Those are all in process right now. So we look at our budgets, we look at our staffing. We have to ensure that we provide, reliable, safe service, so that's our priority. But we're looking at the opportunity where we can save money on other positions. Our biggest expense is fuel and purchase power. If you look at the cost of the utility, and those are the biggest expenses, but all the other expenses we're looking very hard at.
What about selling off assets? How many subsidiary holdings does Hawaiian Electric have?
Oh gosh, other than the utility? I can't speak to anything outside of the core utility because of the way we're regulated, those are the costs that the PUC regulates. The regulation.
Is there anyone here from HEI?
No.
To answer that question?
No. Okay. Yeah, but the purpose is, to answer your question directly, is we do look at those costs. We do make sure that we're managing prudently. We're responsive to the Public Utility Commission as our regulator to make sure we're managing costs within that regulation.
Okay. I guess also, I feel like we would all just like a little more information about what the plan is going forward if this bill, passes and you guys are allowed to, on the backs of ratepayers, have access to this source of capital and it will change the financial situation of the company. So, but we have, meanwhile, I don't think there's been any information given to the public, to ratepayers, to regulators about what you're planning, what comes next. Is it bankruptcy? Is it a sale? Is it, restructuring in a different way to move forward without either of those?
Yeah, I can't
Are we
speculate.
just winging it? What's going on?
Can't speculate on any of those things, but I can tell you what we're looking at is what's in this submittal. So the plan, the wildfire plan, is what we're testifying on here today. And the basis of that plan is to create one, file it, and then recover those costs and do it in the best interest of customers. Now, I've listened to some of the testimony today. We're definitely in support of an open, transparent public process. So workshops to identify best practices, we're very supportive of that in all of our jurisdictions. We're open to that. A docketed process, we're open to that. Whatever it takes to make sure people can have an opportunity to weigh in and help provide input into this process, this risk-based model of how we protect people in Hawaii, because that's what the plan is about. And until we write the plan, we don't know what the plan costs. We could file a plan and the rest of the stakeholders say, gosh, we can't afford that. So we need to use a risk model to evaluate where we should make adjustments. And then when we make those adjustments, then that's the cost of the plan. Now, your earlier question about cost, I did pull out a press release that we issued recently, and you've probably seen this, just to give you an idea of impact of bills. But this was an announcement of the grid resilience plan. The money we received from the federal government as a form of a grant, but the $95 million that's remaining that customers would pay for on Oahu, that $95 million is about a 17-cent impact per month. So that It gives you an order of magnitude, about $95 million, 17 cents on Oahu, 47 cents on Hawaii Island, 39 cents on Maui. Just order of magnitude. But again, until we define what the plan is and we know what's in the plan and what the plan costs, and we seek approval for that, we won't know what that is. But I'm hoping that gives you a frame of reference on the impact for customers.
I had another question, now it's slipping my mind. I guess no one testified in person from KIUC because we had that question. Okay. Oh, I know what I was going to ask. If this passes and the bond is issued, like who holds that? Will that be Hawaiian Electric? And if it's earning interest, because you can't spend it all at once, will that be used to offset costs to ratepayers, or
Well, I might ask for some help on that because I'm testifying on behalf of the wildfire plan, not the securitization portion of the bill. But I don't know, Kevin, if you can answer that.
Chair, as a member of the committee, my name is Kevin Katsura. I'm the Director of Regulatory Affairs for Hawaiian Electric. I'm not sure exactly where the money gets parked, but I know the process basically goes that we come in with certain amounts of money to the PUC about what we want financed, and there's a financing order that needs to be done. So in terms of sizing and things like that, I mean, the needs come up and it's more defined, that's where it kind of would be brought to the PUC, and the PUC would kind of balance. And in the normal course of our financing, this is not new in terms of reviewing our financing. They would actually look at the interest rates, the terms, conditions, the amounts, what we're using it for, and those types of things.
Sure, I guess the question is, outside of that, so that's like in securing the bond, but once you have it, if that's accruing interest internally, that interest, in my view, we should have some provision in here that says that interest gets put back in to offset cost to ratepayers.
Yeah, we definitely would not, I mean, if anything, it would be part of the operations, but we definitely would not be using that, those funds are going to be for the purposes that are being used. So if it's for what's inside of the bill right now, it's going to be used for those type of wildfires, and any interest accrued within those accounts are going to be used for those purposes as well.
Okay. I guess just same question for consumer advocate, and then I'll let us move on. I mean, do you think it would make sense to put something more specific in statute just about making sure that any interest accrued on that
benefit gets passed back to ratepayers? Yes, any mechanism that we can add to the statutes that makes it more prescriptive to protect ratepayers, I'm supportive. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, members, any more questions? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to House Bill 2690 relating to water. First up is Department of Health, Environmental Health Administration.
Aloha chairs, vice chairs, members of the committees. My name is Kathleen Ho on behalf of the Department of Health. We stand in support of House Bill 2690 with one amendment, and that is to clarify that the state policy lead, as outlined on page 6, line 2, is the state policy lead on the VI initiatives. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. I'll be available for questions.
Thank you. DLNR.
Aloha, Ryan Kanakaole, Department of Land and Natural Resources. The department stands on its written testimony in strong support. We do want to note that we did offer one suggested amendment to the bill, particularly in the part of the bill where it creates the Red Hill Remediation Special Fund. Our recommended amendment is to clarify that the cost of the actual remediation of the aquifer is to be borne by the U.S. Navy. We're here for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. University of Hawaii. Board of Water Supply.
Good morning, Ernie Lau, Manager and Chief Engineer for the Honolulu Board of Water Supply. I just want to thank this committee, these committees. We stand in strong support of this measure, and I don't disagree with Ryan's testimony for DLNR. The Navy should be responsible to pay for this mess that we're in. Thank you.
Thank you. Sierra Club of Hawaii on Zoom.
Okay, there you go. Good morning, chairs, vice chairs, members of the committee. Wayne Tanaka with the Sierra Club of Hawaii. We support with amendments this bill. Just want to note, for just under 2 years, we've been receiving continual reports of people on the Navy water lines getting sick, right? So almost immediate reactions after they drink water, after they bathe. And often they have literal sheens underwater, where you can actually see there's something going on. And this is like not just 1 or 2 every other month, this is like dozens at a time. And so most recently we've had 70 families come forward. And these are just the ones that are noticing something's wrong and that are brave enough to reach out. And 70, right? And so from the FTAC hearings, from years ago to most recently the CRI, we've been raising these issues. And all the Navy does is point to the Department of Health. And all the DOH has done most recently is get them to try to test Waiala's shaft, which we know is going to be clean because they've tested it over and over again. The DOH hasn't adjusted their EALs, even though people are still getting sick under the current EALs, or environmental action levels. They haven't required the Navy to look at their water heaters, their plumbing. They haven't put out any drinking water advisories, so consumers can make informed risks assessments for 2 years. And I'm just sharing this because this tells me 2 things, right? We need a separate entity whose sole focus is to pursue full remediation and to hold the Navy accountable. The DOH alone can't do that, right? It's even now it's having a hard time, protecting people so close to the crisis. How can we expect it to do so over the next, 10, 20, 30 years? And more importantly, we need to that entity that pursues full remediation, that entity has to be insulated from the political pressures that we know will be exerted by the military on the governor and by extension the governor's cabinet. It is what it is. It's what they've done. It's what they do. It's what they're going to continue to do. So whatever entity you create, it should not answer just to a deal in our chair or a governor cabinet member. It has to answer to an independent board whose members are appointed by independent organizations. And so that's the basis for our request for amendments that's in our written testimony. I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Jamie Simic on Zoom. Okay, not present. That's all signed up to testify. Is there anyone else wishing to testify? Okay, seeing none, members' questions? Rep. Gannon.
To Kathy Ho with the state.
Hi, Kathy Ho, on behalf of the Department of Health.
Hi, good morning. Thank you so much for your continued efforts in this, saga to clean up the water throughout Oahu. How confident are you in your continued working relationship with the U.S. Navy now that the Joint Task Force, Red Hill Joint Task Force, has essentially concluded its mission?
So we've been in communication with Admiral Barnett, who is going to be taking over the remediation. I have conversations with him on a regular basis. I hope that he will rise to the occasion, and the Navy will rise to the occasion and do what is right for the people of Hawaii, and in pursuing clean water for their Navy families.
There's continued concern about water shortages throughout the U.S. Navy's water line, right? So how, by that I mean, we still haven't brought the new well up to replace Hawai'i shaft. I believe they've got a single source for the people at Pearl Harbor Hickam, the folks that I have the pleasure of representing. How is the state going to be able to continue to interact with the Navy in ensuring that we support good water management through their system?
So I will say that, and then I'll bring up Dennis Lopez, who is the branch chief. But the water source is coming from Waiava Shaft. So the military families are not getting their water from the Navy Halava Shaft, which was shut down. As to the second part of the question, I'll ask Dennis to see if he can answer the question. Thanks.
Thank you, committee members. Dennis Lopez, Safe Drinking Water Branch Chief. The department has been encouraging the Navy and advising them that our preference is that they utilize the capture zone water for beneficial use. And we continue to discuss that with the Navy and encourage them to move in that direction. Having said that, the Navy is also looking at other ways to improve their system, tightening up their system, and that's all part of not only what our action is, but also with the ACO agreement with the EPA, in which we are assisting them with that. We'd like to see them look at reuse of the wastewater for non-potable purpose. There are options outside of, in addition of what they have as far as water resources now, and we're trying to encourage that. I think the Navy has also interest in reactivating Navy Aya Halava Shaft, which has below the has detection of some PFAS levels, but they are looking at treatment for that in emergency situations if they need to supplement their system. The Navy is interested in working towards a treatment system for Red Hill Shaft, and we are evaluating that system. We're waiting for them to put out their EA so that they can have a robust discussion with the public as far as the concerns of reactivating that shaft and putting that water back. But it will be heavily, there will be a lot of redundancy. We'll make sure that they put proper treatment for that source.
Want to follow up?
Okay.
Okay.
Quick follow-up.
Okay, quickly.
Sure.
What would be the state's contribution if the Navy decides to reactivate Red Hill Shaft?
As
how much
would
would this cost us?
Sure. None. The cost of that is borne by the federal government. We do not participate in anything that the federal government does on their utility side. It's not eligible for an SRF program.
Thank you.
Okay, members, any more questions? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to HB 2691 relating to the Red Hill Remediation Authority. Department of Health.
Aloha, Kathy Ho. Aloha, chairs, vice chairs, members of the committees. Kathy Ho on behalf of the Department of Health. We stand in opposition to this measure. So the purpose for the authority is to oversee the remediation of the aquifer and to take direct implementation if needed. This may be in conflict with the regulatory authorities that we already have and may lead to confusion as to our regulatory authority. I'm happy to answer any further questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Attorney General.
Good morning, Chairs Ichiyama and Lowen and members of the committee. My name is Wade Hargrove. I'm a Deputy Attorney General. I'm here for the Department of the Attorney General, and we are testifying in opposition to this measure. As Kathy Ho just kind of laid out pretty clearly, we share the similar concern that the measure creates a quasi-state agency whose mission to oversee and directly implement remediation of contamination from the Red Hill Bulk Fuel Storage Facility overlaps with the Department of Health's regulatory authority to do this very same work. It creates the potential for conflict and confusion that is significant, and it's for this reason that we ask this committee to hold the measure. I'm available for questions too. Thank you very much.
Thank you. DLNR.
Aloha, Ryan Kanakole, Department of Land and Natural Resources. The department stands on its written testimony, and we defer to the Department of Health and the Department of the Attorney General regarding the regulatory and legal issues that were raised. Mahalo.
Thank you. University of Hawaii. Okay, Board of Water Supply.
Ernie Lau, Manager and Chief Engineer for the Board of Water Supply. I've been working on the Red Hill issue for 10 years. During the 10 years, and all due respect to my friends and associates at the Department of Health and the Office of the Attorney General too. 10 years of working under the current structure did not protect the 100,000 people, nearly 100,000 people at Joint Base Pearl Harbor Hickam that were poisoned by their own military through the contamination of Red Hill shaft, which the military, the Navy knew about it for years. The current regulations and structure and organizations that are in place did not protect our island's water resources, our precious VI, from massive contamination. Probably the worst thing has happened on Oahu. This precious VI, this water resource that we depend on, that over 1 million people every day depend on this water resources. It did not prevent this. So I appreciate the courage of these committees and this legislature to do something that is different here. That is not falling within the practices that have been used, that are in place, current regulations, current organizations, that did not protect our water resources and did not protect the 93,000 people that were poisoned. So it's time to do something different. We stand in strong support of this measure. I've been to Albuquerque, New Mexico in 2015 after the 2014 leak. We went there on purpose to go and speak to the communities there to learn their experience of a release of fuel, a large amount of fuel from an Air Force base at Kirtland. And they are still dealing with that 30 years later. What we saw when we met with the utility, the regulators, the state regulators, and the congressional delegation staff is that we saw that depending on who is the governor, who is in charge, the efforts on addressing that contamination would swing back and forth, would ebb and flow. It would go from very aggressive to hold the military aggressive for the issues of cleanup, remediation, and then it would swing back the other way where the military seemed to be getting away with it. So what we need here at Red Hill is a model approach that will last decades, because we are facing a challenge for future generations. These water resources are for our future, for generations and generations to come, for 7 generations or more. So I would just ask you all to consider doing something different. We must do something different. And I would ask you to pass this measure on for discussion. And through this legislative process, I'm confident you'll do the right thing and not let us fall back into our comfort zone, into the boxes that the regulations put us in, because those boxes, those regulations did not protect our water resource and did not protect all those people that were poisoned. Mahalo.
Thank you. Sierra Club of Hawaii.
Morning, chairs, vice chairs, members of the committee. Wayne Tanaka with the Sierra Club of Hawaii. I just spoke to why the Department of Health standing alone, we can't expect them to pursue the full remediation that the Y report envisions. Just to add, we've been at every FTAC hearing, for the last, decade that the DOH runs, raising these issues and concerns. We had to sue the DOH twice in 2017 and 2019 just to get them to uphold the law that this legislature passed to regulate on the Red Hill facility. So this is multiple administrations, right? And to the point that the current structure didn't protect the people that were harmed, it's still not protecting folks that are still getting harmed. And so we really need to think, not just about our relationships now and how things might be progressing or what. We need to think about what happens 5, 10, 20 years from now, when this the immediate crisis is, more or less, more distant in time, and what it will take to achieve, full remediation that the Navy pays for. They're going to continue to exert the political influence that they have been, and we need to protect the future iterations of ourselves to give them the best chance at really truly healing our island. And so with that, we support with amendments of this measure. Thank you.
Thank you. Jamie Simic on Zoom. Okay, not present. Is there anyone else wishing to testify? Okay, seeing none. Members' questions?
Just one.
Oh, Rep. Ganadin.
Oh, just one to the Office of the Attorney General. Good morning.
Good morning.
I was surprised to see such opposition from the state here. In the short time that I've been in office, just over 3 years, I can name off the top of my head half a dozen executive orders, ranging from COVID to water security to things having to do with Lahaina. Is it the position of the Office of the Attorney General that it would rather work through executive orders and the power of the governor and its various administrators rather than sort of look ahead to the next prospective incident regarding water in our state? Or would you, this seems like a plan in lieu of just continually having executive orders and reframing them every few months?
Well, I think my department's position, the position of the Attorney General, is that to legislatively create two agencies tasked with the same effectively legislative mandate and regulatory responsibility, to have almost complete parity with respect to what their job is, could create difficulty with respect to actually implementing that work that we all agree needs to be done. So it's not that there's a prescription for precisely how to move forward with remediation. I think we've all come to understand that is, as Mr. Lau referred to earlier, and the Sierra Club has acknowledged, it's a long-term process, and it will be taken as it comes, step by step. But the mechanism is, I think, what we're commenting on here today is currently housed within the Department of Health with the regulatory authority, the statutory authority, and congressional authorization to take those steps. And I think the concern is to have two agencies tasked with doing the same work does not advance that work.
Thank you.
Thank you. Rep. Russo?
Just a follow-up question. So would you be comfortable supporting this legislation or this approach if we stripped that power away for this specific particular kind of issue that involves the military? If we stripped that away from the Department of Health and gave it to this authority so that there would be no overlap? I feel like there's some dissatisfaction with how things have come about.
Yeah, well, I will say, just hearing the folks that have testified today, I mean, most of the criticism, I think, is as I hear it, oriented towards the past, so preventative failures. And I think the purpose of this measure is looking forward, how do we remediate the contamination that is now present. So I think if your question is, could the bill be amended, I'd be happy to take that back and look at any proposals.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any more questions? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to HB 2453 relating to water infrastructure, Department of Health.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chairs, committee members. Dennis Lopez, Department of Health. The department stands behind its written testimony to strongly support. Thank you.
Thank you. Ulupono Initiative.
Good morning, Chair Ichiyama, Chair Loa, and Vice Chairs Poipoi and Cochran, and members of the committee. Mike Komunikata here on behalf of the Ulupono Initiative. We'd like to stand on our testimony in strong support, just pointing out that this measure is not asking for additional funds. It's solely a tool by which the Department of Health can utilize to meet some of our water infrastructure needs across our communities, some of which could help in response to things like Red Hill and the Maui fires. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That's all signed up to testify. Is there anyone else wishing to testify? Okay, seeing none. Members, questions? Okay, no questions. We'll move on to HB 1545 relating to adaptation pathways planning. We have DLNR.
Aloha, Ryan Kanakaole, Department of Land and Natural Resources. The department strongly supports this bill, and we've offered some comments regarding the planning, the types of planning that are envisioned by this bill. We recommend some amendments that would acknowledge the impacts of climate change on cultural resources, as well as recognizing the impacts on commercial and industrial properties as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Dwayne Fisher and Eric Robinson.
Good morning, chairs, vice chairs, and committee members. My name is Eric Robinson. I'm an attorney. We stand on a written testimony, but I did want to add one amplifying point. So under HRS 225M2, OPSD, that's the Office of Planning and Sustainable Development's statutory responsibilities includes several activities that I think are relevant to adaptation pathway planning. So a few of these activities are that the statute mandates that OPSD shall engage in state comprehensive planning and program coordination, strategic planning, land use planning, coastal and ocean policy management, and sea level rise adaptation coordination, coordinating sea level rise adaptation, regional planning and studies, and climate adaptation and sustainability planning and coordination, including developing, monitoring, and evaluating strategic climate adaptation plans. So I think while we support the overall intent of this bill, I think it's good progress forward. Just want to make sure we're putting it in the right place. I understand there have been some issues historically with implementing, but as far as developing a plan, we think OPSD is the right agency for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that's all signed up. Anyone else wishing to testify? Okay, seeing none. Members, questions? Okay, seeing no questions, we'll move on to HB 2654 relating to building codes, Department of Health.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, and committee members. Mary Ann Rossio from the Department of Health. The department stands on its written testimony and support, and we're here if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Hawaii Reef and Ocean Coalition.
Ted Boland on behalf of the Hawaii Reef and Ocean Coalition and also the Climate Protectors Hawaii. Good morning, chairs, vice chairs, members of the committee. Ted Boland representing both groups. The reason I'm here today, these groups are involved, is because hydrofluorocarbon refrigerants are extremely potent greenhouse gases, and we need to stop using them throughout the country, throughout the world. The EPA and the federal government, the Congress, are both working on this. The reason for this bill now, the reason we need it, is that there are some refrigerants that are prohibited by building codes, and so amendments are needed to the building codes in order to make sure that we can use some of the alternatives that exist, some of them nature-based alternatives that will be less harmful to the environment. So I urge you to pass this bill. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you. Okay, we have Mike Narosi, the Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration Institute.
Chair Ichiyama and Chair Lowen, I'm Bob Toifuku. I'm testifying on behalf of the Air Conditioning and Heating and Refrigeration Institute, and I'll be very brief. Mike Narosi has submitted detailed written testimony, but was unable to get onto Zoom this morning. Basically, the former testifier covered a lot of it. The federal government passed a law in 2020 to phase out hydrofluorocarbon and use in refrigeration units, and the EPA is directed to come up with substitutes. And to make sure that the industry can use the substitutes, they wanted to make sure that the building codes in the state and counties do not conflict, and that's all this bill does. So thank you very much. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Okay, that's all signed up. Is there anyone else wishing to testify? Okay, seeing none. Members, questions? Okay, seeing no questions, we'll move on to HB 1552 relating to the State Park Special Fund. DLNR.
Good morning, chairs, vice chairs, members of the committee. Alan Carpenter, Assistant Administrator with the Division of State Parks. Because we're opposing this bill, I felt it was appropriate for us to give a little bit of context to this opposition. Very little. Okay, I can sum it up. We do not hate the environment. We are very protective of our own spaces. And as you guys know, we have recently found some wealth through good policy and initiatives and a raising of our fees during COVID. So we really need to reinvest that in the park system. This body in particular has been so supportive and engaged in attempts to move forward and create facilities and management commensurate with the amazing resources that we administer. Abbreviated, I wanted to give you one really concrete example because it's recent. So I've been with State Parks since 1991, 33 years. The year before I started with Parks, the Americans with Disabilities Act was passed at the federal level, requiring ADA compliance for all public facilities. As of this moment, half of our campsites have no ADA compliant campsites. The other half are woefully inadequate under that act. The trigger for that is new construction, which means those sites have not been upgraded for 35 years. Just yesterday, I gave the go-ahead for 3 preferred designs to upgrade to full ADA compliance, 3 of our campsites across the state. We did that because we have special funds in our account. We can do the right thing. We don't have to wait until there's a trigger, right? We're doing it because it's the right thing to do, and that's the kind of luxury we now have with the special funds that we have in our account. So that's just one example of why we need to keep our special funds reinvested in the park system. I humbly ask that you please let us deliver on the good faith you guys have placed in us rather than dilute it further. Mahalo, and I'm available for questions.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to testify? Okay, seeing none. Members, questions? Okay, no questions. That is the end of our WAL AM agenda. Recess.
All right, now we're opening up our 9:45 a.m. agenda, Joint Committees, Energy and Environmental Protection and Committee on Water and Land. We have 2 bills on our agenda today, and then we'll vote on both these agendas after the end of this one. First up, we have House Bill 2614 relating to renewable energy. So this is the bill that addresses how to facilitate permitting processes. And first up to testify, we have Hawaii Green Infrastructure Authority.
Aloha chairs, vice chairs, and members of the committees. My name is Dante Hirata Epstein, testifying on behalf of Gwen Yamamoto Lau with the Hawaii Green Infrastructure Authority. HGIA stands on our written testimony, and we're available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Hawaii State Energy Office in support. We have Department of Planning and Permitting with comments. Blue Planet Foundation in support. Recycle Hawaii in support. Ulupono Initiative. Oh, Recycle Hawaii on Zoom. Christopher Dean, go ahead. All right, while we wait for Christopher, we'll move on to Ulupono Initiative in support.
Hello. Oh, sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
Recycle Hawaii stands on its written testimony and the board as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Ulupono.
Thank you, chairs, vice chairs, members of the committee. Micah Munikata here on behalf of Ulupono Initiative. We'll stand on our testimony in strong support of this measure. Looking to streamline some of this permitting. It's been a problem across all our counties. We can look to help folks out a little bit. I think this is a sound policy for our future of renewable energy. Thank you very much, chairs.
Thank you. Then we have Board of Professional Engineers, Architects, Surveyors, and Landscape Architects.
Good afternoon, chairs, vice chairs, members of the committee. My name is Shinu Choi, Executive Officer of the Board of Professional Engineers, Architects, Surveyors, and Landscape Architects. We stand on our written testimony and are available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. We have the Green Party of Hawaii in support, Climate Protectors Hawaii. Ed.
Good morning, chairs, vice chairs, members of the committee. Ted Boland on behalf of the Climate Protectors Hawaii. We'll stand on our written testimony in strong support of this bill. It's a great way to streamline things for people to put on rooftop solar. So I urge you to pass it. Thank you.
Thank you. We have the Kauai Climate Action Coalition in support, Hawaii Food Industry Association on Zoom, not present, in support, Sierra Club of Hawaii in support, 350 Hawaii in support, Solar Ray Corporation in support, Inception Financial in support, Hawaii Solar Energy Association in person.
Good morning, Chair Lowen and Chair Ichiyama. My name is Sandy Wong. I'm here on behalf of the Hawaii Solar Energy Association. Their executive, Rocky Mode, was here. Unfortunately, he ran out to pay his parking meter. We are in strong support of this bill. We are available for any questions. We think it's very important to streamlining the permitting process and make it easier for people to get solar, and so that we can meet the state energy goal of being 100% renewable. Thank you.
Thank you. Associated Builders and Contractors Hawaii chapter with comments, Alternate Energy Hawaii in support, Greenpeace Hawaii, Dave Mullenix on Zoom.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. First of all, thank you, Chair Lowen, and both of your committees for all your efforts and work to protect our environment. We really appreciate your efforts and your work. It's greatly appreciated. Sorry about that. We are in totally support of this. Some folks have to wait up to a year to get their solar permits approved. This app in California, they brought it down to 1 day. We have to get more solar panels onto our rooftops and get off of fossil fuels. 2023 was the hottest year in human history. 2024 is going to be hotter than that, and each year after that's going to be hotter. We have to move really quickly to get off of fossil fuels, and I know your committee is dedicated doing that, and we really appreciate what you're doing. Thank you very much. I'm here for any questions you might have.
Thank you. And then Sonova Energy Corporation in support.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chairs. Annie Makapagal on behalf of Sonova Corporation. I think most of us understand that there's a gigantic backlog at DPP. Everyone's telling you here, everyone's pretty much in support of it. Even the DPP has admitted that they do have a large backlog. There have been strides with residential solar projects, and this will continue that trend, and we strongly urge you to pass out the bill. Thank you.
Thank you. And then we have testimony from Canadian Solar, Alternate Energy, Inc., and Tesla in support. And then it looks like 28 additional testimonies from individuals, all in support. Is there anyone else here to testify on this measure? If not, members, any questions? All right, if not, we'll move on to the last bill on this agenda. This is relating to a Hawaii Environmental Protection Agency. And first up to testify, we have Department of Land and Natural Resources with comments.
Aloha, Pua Ayu from the Department of Land and Natural Resources. The department stands on its testimony and with strong comments.
Thank you. Attorney General with comments.
Good morning, chairs, vice chairs. I'm Deputy Attorney General Miranda Steed. We just had a couple comments on this bill that are just related to technical issues. Just very briefly, there's just a clause that needs to be added in Section 4 on page 8 of the bill after subsection A. It's in our written testimony. And as well as in Section 7 of the bill on page 15, Board of Agriculture should also be included in the changing of references to Hawaii Environmental Protection Agency. If there are any questions, I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you. And then Department of Health in opposition.
Aloha, chairs, vice chairs, members of the committees. My name is Kathy Ho on behalf of the Department of Health. We stand in opposition to this bill and are available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Department of Agriculture in opposition.
Good morning, Dexter Kishida, Department of Agriculture. We stand in opposition to this. Specifically, we do mention quite a few comments about what we feel might need to be changed. Most of all, that extensive discussions do need to be articulated through the different departments because we are moving personnel, duties, et cetera. And full implementation of the bill's stated programs is a little premature without better due diligence. So we'll be here for any questions as well.
Thank you. And then finally, we have Cynthia Rosentes on Zoom. Not present. Is there anyone else here to testify on this measure? If not, members, any questions? Maybe a quick question. I'm not sure. Attorney General, maybe? I always forget what the constitutionally set number of departments we can have is, and if we're at that number already.
I apologize, I don't know that off the top of my head. We're currently at 18 principal departments, but I can double check and get back to you.
Okay. Sure, Kathy, I had a question for you too really quickly, so if you want to, thank you. Department of Health, same question.
Kathy Ho, Department of Health. There is one more slot available for a department.
Just for, we'll get to decision making soon, but you know, when I think there are issues with the structure of this bill. I was kind of thinking of taking it and replacing it with the bill that we had in prior years, which was more of a working group. But looking at it now, I think there might be issues with the title, so I think we're going to defer. But understanding you have issues with the structure of specific structure outlined in this bill, I mean, do you agree that there's sort of a need in this point in time to maybe unify some of these environmental functions under a department that would have some stronger leadership on these issues?
I see that there are overlapping there are instances where there are overlapping departments and agencies, like vector control. So we have vector control in the Department of Health where we support the Department of Ag in their invasive species, and there's overlap with DLNR. So, but we come from it from different perspectives. Like in vector control, we come to it from the perspective of protecting public health. So,
I guess I'm just thinking more from the perspective of issues like climate change, which is clearly one of the sort of most pressing things we're facing today. And most states do have a Department of Environment where there would sort of be a cabinet level position that would be specifically focused on those environmental issues, including, you know, those climate change issues, energy issues, the things that you in DOH have regulatory power over, but also, you know, the resource protection things under DLNR. Right now, it often seems like, you know, especially with Department of Health, I would say that because that department is also lumped in with all the other health issues, which are huge and important, that some of the environmental health issues just seem to not get the same amount of attention that they might if they existed in a department that was more clearly focused on environmental issues. Okay.
Oh.
All right.
Yeah, so let me just answer that question. When you're talking about climate change, Department of Health, EHA, the Environmental Health Administration, we have a climate change person that is helping us with climate change issues. I am looking at really how climate change not only affects public health, but also how the environment is affected. And so that's the area in which I'm looking at. I'm very interested in that. So thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank
So
you.
have
We'll
to leave.
recess for decision making.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Reconvening our 9:05 a.m. agenda, joint committees on water and land and energy and environmental protection. I just want to thank Chair Lowen and the EEP committee for allowing us to have this joint hearing this morning. First up, House Bill 1839 relating to the environment. Recommendation is going to be to pass out a House Draft 1, defecting the date to the year 3000. We're also going to take the Department of Health's testimony to change the position from an air quality electric technician to an environmental health specialist. On page 2, line 11, we're going to delete the phrase "and water quality," so this will just be an air quality measure. And then we're going to put the funding amounts into the committee report. Waterline members, any discussion? Okay, seeing none, Vice Chair, House Draft 1.
Voting on House Bill 1839 with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Rep. Chun?
Aye.
Rep. Ganadin? Excused. Rep. Hashem?
Aye.
Rep. Mizuno?
Aye.
Rep. Morikawa? Rep. Takayama?
Aye.
Rep. Souza? Recommendation is adopted.
Thank you.
Committee on Energy and Environmental Protection, same recommendation. Any discussion, members? If not, Vice Chair.
Voting on HB 1839, same recommendation of WAL, and Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Let's see, we have Representative Gates is excused. Representative Kahaloa. Aye. Representative Peruso.
Aye.
Representative Justin Woodson is oh, sorry, there you are on the other end. Mahalo. And Representative Jean Ward is excused also. Chair, the measure is adopted.
Thank you.
Thank you, members. Next, House Bill 1840 relating to the environment. Recommendation is to pass out a House Draft 1, defecting the date to the year 3000 and putting the dollar amounts into the committee report. Waterland members, any discussion? Okay, seeing none, Vice Chair, House Draft 1.
Voting on House Bill 1840 with amendments. Noting all members as present, are there any noes or reservations? Okay, seeing none, recommendation adopted.
Thank you, members.
Committee on Energy and Environmental Protection, same recommendation. Any discussion? If not, Vice Chair.
Voting on HB 1840, Chair passes with amendments, and Chair and Vice Chair vote ayes. Seeing excused absences of Reps Gates and Ward. Members present, any reservations or noes? Seeing none, measure is adopted.
Okay, next, we're moving on to House Bill 2095 relating to emergency management. Based on the testimony from the department, we're going to defer this measure. Next, House Bill 2407 relating to wildfire risk mitigation. The recommendation is to pass out a House Draft 1, defecting the date to the year 3000, adopting the amendments proposed in the Consumer Advocates testimony, also adopting the Public Utilities Commission amendments that were attached to their testimony, except for the 15% reasonable overage, which is contained in their proposed testimony as an addition to Section 269-C, subsection F. We're basically going to delete subparagraphs 1 and 2 from their proposed amendment. So we are taking out the automatic approval of the 15% overage. We're also going to note in the committee report, I think some of the discussion that was raised during the testimony about, maybe I'll let Chair Lowen elaborate.
Just, I think, noting in the committee report that we will continue to work on this, and there needs to be, I think, more specific and descriptive language about how to, ensure we're protecting ratepayers and the public interest. And then I think, in addition, we wanted to include some language saying that like the committee would hope that Hawaiian Electric is also looking at how they can, take steps to save money on their end.
Okay, Waterland members, any discussion? Seeing none, Vice Chair, House Draft 1.
Voting on HB 2407 with amendments. Noting all members as present, are there any noes or reservations? Okay, hearing none, recommendation is adopted.
Committee on Energy and Environment, same recommendation. If no discussion, Vice Chair, please take the vote.
Voting on HB 2407, Chair recommends pass with amendments. Both Chair and Vice Chair vote ayes. Seeing excused absences of Gates and Ward. Members present, any reservations or noes? Seeing none, the measure is adopted.
Thank you.
Thank you, members. Next, turning to House Bill 2690 relating to water. Recommendation is to pass out a House Draft 1, defecting the date to the year 3000, adopting the Department of Health's amendment in their testimony, also adopting the language from Department of Land and Natural Resources. So we're going to add on page 7, subsection 3, to the section on the special fund that the cost of aquifer remediation should be paid for by the federal government. We're going to insert the dollar amounts into the committee report. We're also going to add to the responsibilities of the policy coordinator a report to the legislature due December 1st, 2024 on the Red Hill Remediation Authority as contained in the draft of House Bill 2691. I think there is a lot of discussion that this authority may need some more work and more amendments, so we're going to ask the policy coordinator to take a look at it and come back to us with a recommendation. Okay, Waterland Committee members, any discussion? Okay, Vice Chair, I'm sorry, Rep. Gagnon.
Just a note of appreciation, a sincere thanks and mahalo to the thousands of people that have marched in the streets to advocate for cleaner water, and to the residents of District 30 that I have the pleasure of representing at Hickam who are continued to be affected by this. Please continue to keep showing up and pressuring your legislature.
Waterland members, any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, Vice Chair, House Draft 1.
Voting on House Bill 2690 with amendments. Are there any noes or reservations? Okay, hearing none, recommendation is adopted.
EEP, same recommendation. Any discussion, members? If not, Vice Chair, please take the vote.
Voting on HB 2690, Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Let's see, and excuse absence of Rep. Ward, noting Rep. Gates here present. Members at this time, any noes or reservations? Seeing none, measure is adopted.
Thank you very much, members. Next, turning to House Bill 2691 relating to the Red Hill Remediation Authority, we're going to defer this measure. Next, turning to House Bill 2453 relating to water infrastructure, recommendation is to pass out a House Draft 1 defecting the date to the year 3000. Waterland members, any discussion? Seeing none, Vice Chair, House Draft 1.
Voting on HB 2453 with amendments. Are there any noes or reservations? Hearing none, recommendation is adopted.
Committee on Energy and Environment, same recommendation. Any discussion, members? If not, please take the vote.
Voting on HB 2453, pass with amendments, noting excuse absence of Rep. Ward. At this time, are there any noes or reservations? Seeing none, measure is adopted.
Okay, thank you, members. Next, House Bill 1545 relating to adaptation pathways planning. Recommendation is to pass out a House Draft 1, defecting the date to the year 3000, taking the amendments from both DLNR and University of Hawaii Sea Grant. We're also going to add a new subsection 6 on page 9, line 15, and that the department shall ensure that the plans that include armoring to prevent loss of public infrastructure shall be time limited. Members, Waterland, any discussion? Okay, seeing none, Vice Chair, House Draft 1.
Voting on House Bill 1545 with amendments. Are there any noes or reservations? Okay, hearing none, recommendation is adopted.
Committee on Energy and Environment, same recommendation. Members, any discussion? Seeing none, please take the vote.
Voting on HB 1540, noting excuse absence.
545.
Oh, sorry. Oh, HB 1545, correction, thank you. To pass with amendments, noting excuse absence of Rep. Ward. Current members, any reservations or noes? Seeing none, the measure is adopted.
Thank you, members. Next, turning to House Bill 2654, relating to building codes. Recommendation is to pass out a House Draft 1, defecting the date to the year 3000. We're also going to add in a new section to HRS Chapter 107 to state that when adopting, amending, or updating the codes and standards identified in Section 107-25, the Council shall establish codes and standards that are consistent with the goal of reducing greenhouse gas emissions associated with hydrofluorocarbons. Okay, Waterland members, any discussion? Seeing none, Vice Chair, House Draft 1.
Voting on House Bill 2654 with amendments. Are there any noes or reservations? Hearing none, recommendation is adopted.
Thank you, members.
Committee on Energy and Environment, same recommendation. Members, any discussion? Seeing none, please take the vote.
Thank you. Voting on HB 2654 to pass with amendments. Excused is Rep. Ward. Members present, any noes or reservations? Seeing none, measure is adopted.
Thank you, members. The last bill were Waterland 905 agenda. House Bill 1552, the State Park Special Fund, will be deferred. I'll turn it over to EEP.
We need to recess and reconvene. No. Okay, so now we're back to the joint agenda, EEP and Water Land. We have one bill, still two bills on this agenda. First is House Bill 2614. For this measure, we're just going to defect the date to the year 3000 and move it forward. Members, any discussion? If not, Vice Chair, please take the vote.
Thank you. Voting on HB 2614, Chair chooses to pass with amendments. Both Chair, Vice Chair vote ayes. Rep Ward is excused. Other members, any noes or reservations? Seeing none, measure is adopted.
All right, Water Land, same recommendation.
Oh, sorry, same recommendation.
Okay, voting on,
Oh, go ahead, Vice Chair.
okay. Voting on House Bill 2614 with amendments. Are there any noes or reservations? Okay, hearing none, recommendation adopted.
Thank you, members.
All right, and then on House Bill 2166, as we previously mentioned, we're going to defer this measure at this time. And we'll adjourn this hearing, but EEP members, we have one more agenda, so thank you. All right, everyone, we are back. We have a 10 a.m. agenda, Committee on Energy and Environmental Protection. We have two bills on this agenda. First up is House Bill 2770 relating to the Public Utilities Commission. This is looking at the requirement for a HERA administrator and adding some language regarding resilience. So first up to testify on this measure is the consumer advocate.
Morning, Chair Lowen. Morning, Vice Chair Cochran, members of the committee. My name is Mike Angelo. I am the Executive Director of the Department of Commerce and Consumer Affairs Division of Consumer Advocacy. We stand by our written testimony, offering comments on this bill, and are available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. And then we have the Public Utilities Commission.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. My name is Grace Ralph, testifying on behalf of the Public Utilities Commission in support of this measure. We'll stand on our written testimony, but are happy to answer questions. Thanks.
Thank you. And then Hawaiian Electric in opposition.
Good morning, Chair and Vice Chair. Becca Dehuff Matsushima on behalf of Hawaiian Electric in opposition to HB 2770. I want to make clear that we don't oppose the addition of resilience to 269-145.5. But we do have concerns with the rest of the bill. Act 201 from the 2022 legislature required the commission to complete a interconnection requirement study, with an independent consultant to determine whether we needed to add standards or reliabilities. They came out with their phase 2 report just prior to this legislative session. And Hawaiian Electric is in the process of implementing the recommendations that came out of the phase 1 and phase 2 studies of that Act 201 report. In addition, the commission already has the ability to mandate standards if they'd like, and they're already addressing resilience, and in fact, they just approved Hawaiian Electric's 5-year, $190 million climate adaptation plan this past week. So we think that this bill would only serve to add cost to customers and not provide any additional support to our customers. Thank you.
Then we have Hawaii Clean Power Alliance in support, and two additional individuals, or one individual in support and two individuals in opposition. Is there anyone else here to testify on this measure? If not, members, questions? Okay, well, we're running late, so we'll go ahead and move on. Next up on the agenda, we have House Bill 1972. This is relating to electric vehicle batteries and would establish a EV battery recycling program. First up to testify, we have Department of Health on Zoom or in person. Hi.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Lene Ichinotsubo with the Department of Health Solid and Hazardous Waste Branch. The department stands on its written testimony offering comments. Thank you.
Thank you. And the Hawaii State Energy offering comments, Energy Office.
Morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Maria Tomei from Remark Lick, Hawaii State Energy Office. We stand on our written comments on this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. And then we have the Alliance for Automotive Innovation with comments.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. I'm Tiffany Ajima, testifying on behalf of the Alliance for Automotive Innovation. We submitted comments in opposition of this measure, and really it's because a system is already in place that's on the manufacturer to do EV battery waste collection and disposal. So I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have, and also just would note that if the committee is interested in this measure, we would support a study or a working group to look at this more comprehensively. Thank you.
Thank you. And then we have additional testimony in support from the County of Hawaii, Department of Environmental Management, from 350 Hawaii, from the Product Stewardship Institute, from Tesla, and from 3 individuals. And we have testimony in opposition from Hawaii Automobile Dealers Association and testimony offering comments from the Grassroots Institute of Hawaii. Is there anyone else here to testify on this measure? If not, members, any questions? All right, if not, let's go straight to decision making. Everyone's here, so we'll just jump straight in. On the first measure, HB 2770, we're going to just revert the statute from, the bill proposes to change the word may to shall. And I think it's kind of funny because the commission for a long time has not wanted to exercise their authority to establish the HERA administrator, although they have that authority and now they want to, so they can. And I don't think that we need to make that change. And then we're going to leave the language about reliability. So, and then I think we're also going to take out the first paragraph of the purpose clause of this measure, because I think it just frames it in a way that is a little questionable to me. I don't think it's needed. And that is all. With that, members, any discussion? Oh, and we'll defect the date to the year 3000. Any discussion, members? If not, Vice Chair, please take the vote.
Thank you, Chair. Voting on HB 2770, Chair recommends pass with amendments. Both Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Rep. Gates?
Aye.
Rep. Kahaloa? Aye. Rep. Peruso?
Aye.
Rep. Woodson? And Jean Ward is excused. Chair, your measure is adopted.
Thank you. And then on House Bill 1972, we're going to turn this into a working group that would submit policy recommendations to the legislature to look at an EV battery recycling program. So this would include looking at the opportunities and barriers. We'd look at, reuse as a first option, for potentially for energy storage systems, and then looking at recycling following that, considering the aspects specific to Hawaii, like the additional costs of transporting batteries out of state, and looking at opportunities for how much manufacturers should be involved in the end of use responsibility for their own products. And we're looking at adding to that working group, we're looking at giving the responsibility for convening that working group to the Hawaii State Energy Office and Department of Health, and then including vehicle manufacturers, waste recycling organizations, automobile dealers, environmental organizations, someone from the energy storage industry, and some other members. So we have to work out the language in that a little more detail. And then the working group would also submit a report to the legislature before the 2025 session, and then dissolve after that. So with that, members, any discussion? If not, Vice Chair.
Thank you. Voting on HB 1972, Chair recommends to pass with amendments, noting the excused absence of Rep. Ward, At this time, any noes or reservations? Seeing none, Chair, the measure is adopted.
All right, with that, we're adjourned. Thank you.